Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Ted Grossnickle with his talk titled Reimagining Generosity in America. Ted brings decades of experience in advancement to help his clients think strategically about their fundraising efforts. A leader to the JGA team and to the broader nonprofit community, he's known for his authentic voice and commitment to guiding organizations to achieve their best. After graduation from Wabash College, he worked at Procter & Gamble Company, his alma mater, then Northern Illinois University, where he served in several roles, including advancement in corporate relations. From 1983 to 1993, he served as Vice President of Development and Public Affairs for Franklin College, and then as acting president in 1993. He co-founded JGA with Don Johnson in 1994. Ted serves as chair of the JGA Board of Directors, as managing counsel to several clients, and as mentor to staff. He has received numerous honors and awards for his achievements, such as the Henry A. Rosso Medal for Lifetime Achievement in Ethical Fundraising. Ted is serving in his second term on the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, Board of Visitors, and is a past board chair. He is a former Wabash College board member and served as co-chair of Wabash College's Challenge of Excellence campaign. Let's give a warm welcome to Ted.
Thank you. Good morning. It is great to be here. You brought good weather for me, and I appreciate it. There's nothing like being on the Wabash campus on a day like this. Well, there may be other things like it, but this is pretty good. Thanks to Caden, to you, Cooper, to the Sphinx Club, and to Wabash for having me here. I'm honored. It's also nice personally to see a good number of Lambda Chi Alpha brothers. And there is a brother team, the brothers Donovan. Where are you? There they are. I've known these guys both since they were born. I worked with their mom, and at least one of them has gotten up on water skis with me. So you can ask Casey about that. Being here is also a bit of a reacquaintance for me with Wabash. I've been deeply involved, as Cooper mentioned. And about the time that I went off the board of trustees, I think in 2015, I had an opportunity that came my way, an opportunity for service, to lead a national volunteer initiative in our country. It's been a deeply intensive experience for me, and one into which I took a deep dive, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But this morning it feels like I've come up a little bit from that deep dive, and it's a good feeling. A little bit of background. I should not admit this, but 50 years ago now, I was a second semester senior. I know it's weird. It's weird to me too. But I was enjoying that weirdly focused and unfocused time as a second semester senior. That moment between comps and commencement. There's probably a novel written in there for each of us in just those few months. But what remains is that despite that being a half century ago, every time I come back to this campus, something reaches into my heart and my mind deeply, and it never fails to reappear. Before I talk about that deep dive into generosity and what I think I learned about Americans in this national experience, I would tell you about what happened after my second semester of my senior year. I'd planned on going to law school, received some law school acceptances, and I had a weird moment, an epiphany. I decided I didn't want to go into law. And so as a second semester senior, I had to decide what to do. Do I go ahead and go to school, further it out, play it out, stick with it? Do I go sit on a beach for a couple of months? Do I go into something entirely different? In my case, the right answer was to try something entirely different. I chose the latter, and I went to work at Procter & Gamble. So I think back on it now, the beach might have been better, but Procter & Gamble was a good place to start. Now, there's an old danger here in what I've just been doing. It reminds me of what Mark Twain said, quote, "The older I get, the more vividly I recall things that never occurred." But you're safe. The vast majority of what I'm going to talk about is about the future, not the past. So after serving as an advancement officer and acting president of college, I co-founded a consulting firm. The brothers Donovan and their mom and I and about 16 other people work for our clients, a national firm, about 29 states, a couple of foreign countries. And our clients, if you take them in aggregate, are trying to raise money in support of their missions, their colleges, their hospitals, museums, human service agencies. The aggregate of all of those campaign goals is around $2 billion. And along the way, I've served as a volunteer myself. It's always seemed to me the right thing to do to not just walk around and try to give good advice to people about raising money, but to do it myself. And in fact, that maybe being a volunteer and walking in those shoes makes me and makes my colleagues at our firm better, more realistic, more compassionate and human in the advice that we give to our clients. Along the way, being a volunteer, one of the things I did was to chair the Giving Institute, which is a group of national fundraising consulting firms. There are about 70 of them in America. In our meetings, about 5 years ago, members of these national firms who worked with nonprofits all across America, probably representing roughly half of the money that is raised in America every year, began to ask ourselves a question. How much of what we are telling our clients about how to go about encouraging people to give is based upon fact, upon research, and how much is based upon assumptions? You can hear me talk about assumptions and mentioning the danger of assumptions here a few more times. But the last time in America that there was a serious look taken at how Americans give and volunteer was 1975. In 1975, about 10% of the people in nonprofit work were female. There was no internet. About $25 billion was being given away every year. Contrast that to the way it is now, with a field that has roughly 70% women, clearly internet-driven, and about $500 billion is given away in America every year. So it's clear there have been some changes. And America has not taken a serious look at how it gives and how it volunteers really since then. There have been some national meetings and discussions, but not a serious research-backed look. And it seemed to all of us that we were just going along with the quiet assumption that everything is okay with giving and volunteering in America. We could assume it's a part of our DNA, that we do it without having to periodically reimagine it. And it turns out that's truly dangerous, because giving in America has real challenges. Consider, as of 2021, there are roughly 24 million Americans who used to regularly contribute to some cause every year who do not do so any longer. The percentage of American households that actively volunteer for at least one cause annually about 10 years ago was around 68 to 69%. Right now it's hovering around 50% and showing no signs of going up. We've all heard about the incredible gifts of people like Mackenzie Scott. Amazing. And the mega gifts are wonderful. and it helps propel America to where we are right now, with about $500 billion being contributed every year. But right underneath that headline is something that's a little scarier, that if you think of all the donors in America in a pyramid, the pyramid is becoming tighter and sharper. the base is eroding. So the headline is great. There's a lot of money being given away, but by fewer people. What does that mean for us as a society? When we're asked to serve on a jury, you can make a pretty good argument that that's an important part of being a citizen. When you vote, when a next-door neighbor asks you to help out, and you do, or you go over to your neighbor and say, "Can I give you a hand?" That's generosity, as is writing a check or making a gift for which you get a tax receipt. It's all generosity. And so what began to become clear to us was that there needed to be a national look at generosity, that maybe we were taking it a little bit for granted, or a lot for granted. So we set out to create a national commission of individuals from all sectors of America: business, nonprofits, government, religion, technology, the arts, sciences, and human services, who could commission research, talk to one another about the results of that research, and create a national conversation for the first time in 50 years, and publish a report with hearings by Congress on that report, with informal and formal recommendations and ideas for various sectors to consider. Not only legislation, but what could foundations do? What can corporations do? What can we all do to expand giving and volunteering? And so we got to work. I was asked to chair the effort. We had 29 people, and our job was to stand it up. And I'm going to talk to you about what standing up that commission was like. We had 27 people. We raised about $4.5 million. And imagine this, going to people and saying, "We'd like you to make a gift for something that doesn't exist. There are no happy alums or grateful patients, but trust us, it'll work out just fine." Now, the cool thing is that a lot of people and a lot of foundations and companies said, "Yes, we want to help." And they saw that this was maybe larger than simply about giving and volunteering. That maybe had something to do with a healthy, functioning democracy. Maybe it is like serving on a jury and voting. So we were successful in getting that stood up. We recruited the people who actually serve on the commission, and that commission was impaneled in the fall of 21. It has met roughly every 5 or 6 months. I serve as a counselor to the commission, which is a great gig, by the way, because it means I get to sit and listen and hear all the research, and I don't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but I am enjoying immensely those conversations. The most recent discussion of that group was in Washington on March 23rd and 24th. And for those of you who are interested in learning more, you can go to www.generositycommission.org. It'll tell you much more than I can today. But the focus and stated aim of the commission is to reimagine generosity in America. How do we understand it better? How do we make it work better? How to make it stronger? And how to have more Americans understand what an immense part of a high-functioning society generosity is. We were warned at the outset by a good number of very, very smart people that this was a fool's errand, that America is balkanized, cynical, and unable to have this sort of commission and a national conversation, that it was not very probable that there could be recruited a group of persons from multiple sectors in America that would have any form of ideological balance and an ability and willingness to talk with one another, that the group would either be far left or far right or perceived as such, and that even if you had people from multiple viewpoints politically, you'd not be able to have a civil conversation. We took it as a challenge, and we set out to not only find people of high accomplishment, but those who also had a reputation for being able to hear others and to think about different points of view than their own. A truly radical concept. My sense from the very beginning as we recruited this commission that it was going to be absolutely essential that we could find a group who could hear and disagree with each other about the research, but unite on the common thread of giving and volunteering in America and how to make it stronger. Now, the ultimate test of all of this, of course, is not whether we've made the effort. That's nice, but what's more important is what the results are. And put bluntly, the jury is out, but not for long. We're going to know in less than a year if this thing gets traction. So what might you expect to see and hear in the next 9 months? The commission is going to issue a report this fall. Early drafting of the report is already underway. The research is all conducted, and it's now nearly complete. The report will be shared with Congress and widely disseminated throughout the U.S. There are going to be many ideas and policy recommendations, again, for things like tax policy, for what corporations can do, what foundations can do, what individuals can do. For example, you know that companies have things called health savings accounts. Why not have charitable giving accounts? Think about the role of crowdfunding in America. Roughly 85 to 90% of the money in crowdfunding is for for-profit causes. What would happen if the U.S. government were to incentivize that and say, if you make a gift with a group of people with some boundaries, you get a slightly advantageous tax advantage? Think about the role of crowdfunding for giving days, one of which you have coming up just next week. What might community foundations do that would accelerate grassroots contributions for grassroots efforts in everybody's hometown? Now, one of the things that is most exciting to me about the work of the Commission and the upcoming report is that the recommendations are not based solely on what a group of leaders and experts have arrived at, but is also including a national conversation. I mentioned that a minute ago, and it's one way of us testing our own assumptions in the report. When that draft report comes out, it's not going to hopefully just land and be announced. It's going to be tested with a lot of organizations and people beforehand. But it's also going to have something very unusual. The Commission has struck a deal with National Public Radio to have it feature stories of generosity in America on StoryCorps. How many of you hear StoryCorps or listen to it? Anybody? It's a periodic feature on NPR where people talk to people. And the results, those short interviews, are stored and curated in the National Archives. But there will be 75 to 100 stories of individuals just talking to individuals about generosity, acts large and small, over the next 6 to 12 months. I think that series starts in September. But to me, having everyday people, donors, and volunteers talking about what generosity means to them is a hugely powerful element of the Commission's final impact. And I think it's going to be illuminating for our fellow citizens. I think the odds are good that some legislation in coming years, likely over the next decade, may include ideas from the Commission. So now that I'm back here on campus, it seems timely to ask myself and to share with you what my Wabash experience did for me or played out as we put this together. It's relevant, I hope, to you, because someday each of you, each one of you, will bring to bear in your life and work what you're learning here now. So here are some first thoughts. Embrace different perspectives. I think it's a natural, but I understood when I graduated from Wabash as a senior that demanding and tough situations in human experience have multiple elements to consider usually. There are often conflicting perspectives about what may have happened. And there are usually different and conflicting perspectives about why things are as they are today as a result of that history. And though I don't likely agree with all of the perspectives, a critical, discerning perspective is vital. And it's really, really healthy. It certainly served me well with the Commission because there were people that would argue passionately one cause and somebody would then talk about that same cause with an entirely different perspective. Wabash prepared me well for that. So number one, embrace different perspectives. Two, pluralism is really important and should be treasured. There were people on the commission that believed that a single point of view, passionately held and articulated, should take precedence perhaps over a larger truth or cause. One of those, who was a national advocate for voting rights, gun control, and abortion rights, believed that support for those causes is good generosity, and that people who didn't agree with those and gave to the other side were participating in bad generosity. Now, should there be a litmus test? What the commission ended up saying was, no, this is not solely about whether or not you should or shouldn't support voting rights or abortion rights or whatever, but rather that you should contribute and you should participate and you need to be in the arena. Our larger idea turned out not to be about just giving and volunteering. It was about what makes for a stronger democracy. Historian John Meacham writes that the pluralism in America is an essential part of how we, in fact, over many times, over many points in our history, including today, grapple with differing and conflicting viewpoints. So pluralism has turned out, from my experience in the last couple of years with the commission, to be vital. Third, be suspicious of assumptions. What backs them up? Ask. And if you have to keep asking questions to get an answer, get more suspicious. Then test and research the assumptions if you can. I would tell you that, lastly, Wabash does an amazing job of helping you learn how to embrace different perspectives, pluralism, and to test assumptions. You know, places like Wabash are rare, and they do need nurturing. Wabash relies on private gift support. Tuition covers a portion, and a modest portion, of what it takes to deliver education for you here each year. It's been estimated that you calculate the total cost of a Wabash education and apply that tuition first to the cost. It would cover your education here up until about mid-October, and that the rest of the year from mid-October to next June would be that covered by gifts and endowment and generosity. So at its heart, Wabash is based upon and supported by generosity. What about each of you? I hope that each of you are generous. I see a lot of shirts with various causes. I love to see that here, walking on campus. You don't have to write a check to be generous. It's nice if you want to, but it's not the only way to express that. Again, contribute blood, vote, serve on a jury, help your neighbor, help a fellow student. You have Giving Day coming up on April 19th. Think about these ideas on that day. What might you do to help? There's something uniquely powerful about the experience at Wabash that creates a blend of audacity and hope, which makes larger things happen in the world. At the heart of it, what results when we're generous? My answer is it makes us more human. So thanks for having me here today, and I'll leave you with this old saying, which is very, very true. We drink from wells we did not dig. We are warmed by fires we did not kindle. Thank you.